We have another housing-related program now, returning to the state of Florida. The Affordable Housing Guarantee Program, represented by Priscilla Howard, yes, and also by Susan Lay. And Susan, I am told this afternoon you left your voice behind in Florida, but you're here.
I can answer questions.
Okay, delighted to have you both. Please.
Good afternoon. You've been given all the numbers and statistics in your application, so I'll just start with the bottom line. The Florida Guarantee Program works, and it can be replicated by any entity that can control a dedicated revenue source. Speaking directly to the heart of the program, the fund provides for one of the two basic human needs, shelter. At the Florida Housing Finance Corporation, that is our mission. And the Guarantee Fund has become the most valuable tool for accomplishing it. Buying a home may have been an economic choice for you, but it probably was not a choice between medical care, between housing, or groceries. For 250,000 Floridians statewide, however, it is just such a choice. Driving this need is the fact that a majority of the Floridians are employed in our service sector, where work is often seasonal and low paying. These are Florida's working poor, the fastest growing population in our segment of our population. Adding to the strain is the ongoing impact of the 1986 federal tax reform that stripped us of critical federal incentives. The results were devastating. Production of affordable housing came to a screeching halt. Rents escalated and the lowest income families were left with few housing opportunities. The practical effect was that virtually no affordable housing units were produced. Clearly, Florida faced a housing crisis for its hardest working and lowest earning citizens. The state had to step in, but we knew that relying on traditional funding mechanisms would mean losing ground each year. So we forged an alliance with our partners, the lenders, builders, realtors, and housing advocates, to create a new tool that is renewable and that can leverage available dollars. In unprecedented 1992 legislation, this Florida public-private partnership won a dedicated funding source for the new pilot program that became the Guarantee Fund. Through this program, we have been able to provide $5 worth of impact for each dollar raised. The Guarantee Fund moved beyond the traditional approaches for lending and enabled us to provide what we would like to call public policy insurance. That means government assumes only an incremental risk associated with accomplishing the desired public purpose. In exchange for the guarantee, the developer commits to serve a targeted population for up to 50 years. The $76 million guarantee fund is held as a renewable insurance reserve against housing valued at over $400 million. It bridges the gap in financing that had prevented development of affordable communities. The fund has proven to be user-friendly to the federal and local players necessary to accomplish our goals. It's accessible because its complexity is behind the curtains. It is flexible, it is self-sustaining, and it is renewable. And most importantly, it is effective. That is the essence of the program. The fund has provided over 10,000 families with safe, affordable housing and supports facilities such as daycare, job training, transportation, learning, and community centers. Serious, almost overwhelming need remains, but we now know that we can meet much of that need. That is the magnitude of the fund's potential. But can this public policy insurance be replicated? Yes, it can, and it has been. Florida's local governments now have the authority to sell bonds to create similar funds of their own. The Guarantee Fund is being used as a model for a new legislative program that will fund brownfield environmental initiatives. And we're working with the legislature to help finance badly needed infrastructure improvements. What else can we say about the Guarantee Fund? It crosses political boundaries. It is a nonpartisan issue in Florida that has enjoyed overwhelming support from a Republican legislature and our Democratic governor. The fund is market-driven. We have not asked the financial markets to adapt to our needs. We have adapted to the needs of the markets. In 1997, both Standard & Poor's and Fitch awarded the fund a coveted A rating. As further evidence of market acceptance, both Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae are negotiating to purchase the fund's entire portfolio of loans. This innovation will fully renew the fund's $400 million capacity. So where do we go from here? We will continue to innovate to maximize and expand the Guarantee Fund resources. With your support, we look forward to having the opportunity to help out other families nationwide not have to make the choice between food and shelter.
Right on the dot. David Osborne.
In your write-up, you talk about having gotten the idea in part from a New York program. Could you describe the difference between the two and why you think that Florida's is an innovation that's superior to the previous version?
One of the main differences in the two programs is that New York has to go back to the legislature every year and ask for the specific amount of money they need. Our funds are already dedicated. In fact, within statute, they have priority over other programs to be funded in case there's any type of default or any issues that may arise. But the funds are guaranteed to be there. There is no additional going back to the legislature to get the funds. The funds were raised by the industry and dedicated specifically for this purpose.
In that same regard, how does it differ from the FHA program at the federal
Just
level?
from a guarantee fund, I mean, from a credit
guarantee,
enhancement
yeah.
perspective, it works better. It's the main difference. It's faster. The FHA 221 and those types of programs take almost a year to get through their process. One of the problems we had with credit enhancements from out of the state of Florida was that we had to do what they wanted us to do. We might have, and we did have, specific public purpose and specific groups we were trying to reach that without that from a policy perspective, Florida wanted to make that choice and not depend on what HUD wanted to do or what Mubin might want to do or Citibank or some other credit enhancement that might come in.
Yeah, Doran.
I'm in the process of buying a house, and
I'm sorry.
I don't understand financing, so I'm just going to close my eyes and sign wherever I'm told to sign. With that in mind, I need you to help me understand something that's in your narrative, where you say that your major accomplishment with the loan guarantee has to do with speeding up the financing process and thus decreasing the costs associated with financing. What I'm not sure I understand is how that translates into increasing the numbers of houses that are being financed through this process, or put differently, increasing the numbers of people who are able to to afford housing. I see lots of numbers, but I'm not sure I understand what they mean.
I wouldn't say that speeding up our process is the most effective thing that this does, although it absolutely, from a developer standpoint, carrying cost, the longer you hold a piece of property, which you have to have a piece of property prior to financing something, and this is in a rental property, development as opposed to a single family, right? That if you hold every month, every week you hold a piece of property, there are carrying costs associated with it. If we can get you through the process in 8 weeks versus a year, there's a huge amount of cost savings in that process. From a single-family perspective, we don't make direct loans to single-family individuals. We produce the capital for lenders to make loans, and there's other benefits of the guarantee fund because we hit a lower, an income level lower than what traditional banks will hit because we provide the risk, we take on the risk and let the bank have the regular mortgage.
Dot Ridings.
Funny question. What did the dock stamp revenues that's dedicated to this go to before it was dedicated to this?
It was actually raised specifically for this purpose. Dock stamps are used for various things within the state of Florida, including environmental, including buying land for communities trust. There are various categories. There was a dime raised specifically for this purpose. The industry, the coalition, the advocates, we stopped fighting with one another and said, we all want the same thing. Let's all go tell somebody we want the same thing so they can't go say, ask somebody else. And so the funds were raised specifically for this purpose because everybody, the realtors, the advocates, knew that providing housing in the state of Florida, everybody had an interest in it. It was good for the state.
So the traditional 10 cents that was added, that was dedicated to this.
Yes, ma'am.
I see.
Susan Schwab.
I recall reading how many people you had administering this program. And I'd like you to repeat it out loud.
Well, it depends on what day of the week. Actually, right now we have one.
I mean, the number in your application was 2.
What two? Holly, who helped write this, actually left and took a real job. She's with Arthur Anderson now. But we have one individual, in fact, Tom Tinsley's here, who started the fund. But we never have more than 1 or 2 people in any of our programs because we work as teams. We are a team, and everybody works together to accomplish a specific goal, and this is no different.
Thank you.
Well, thank you both very much, Priscilla Howard